Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Wednesday, September 17th, 2025, and Chrystia Freeland is moving into a new position in Ukraine. In Ukraine, honestly. We're paying for her to go and rebuild Ukraine for some reason. For some reason, why? I don't know. But everybody seems just fine with that, and everybody's forgetting about the terrible job she did as finance minister and the terrible job she did as transport minister in the last 6 months. And everybody's saying, oh, we'll miss you so much, Chrystia Freeland. No, we won't miss her. But I don't know why we're going to be paying for her to go hang out in Ukraine and do nothing in Ukraine. The Arrive scam lawsuit, they had $100 million given to their companies, all told, I think, and they're getting sued for $200,000. Honestly. So I've got that for you this morning. Arrests in Ottawa for flying the Canadian flag, and it's a fine. It's actually a bylaw fine, and the arrest was a few years ago, and it was one of the Alexander kits, and so, but they're still enforcing bylaw orders. If a police officer tells you to put away a flag, you could get given a $150 ticket, and that's pretty wild. Trump and Bondi go after hate speech? I thought they had the First Amendment in the United States. Ruh-roh. Hate speech, eh? Charlie Kirk and the emails, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with Charlie Kirk that I want to talk about. We've got not the emails, the text messages that were obviously faked, and everything else around it. It just seems really hinky, and we're going to talk about it. Candace Owens stuff too. We're going to talk about that. I've got another gun to show you, another angle to show you, but it's basically the same angle as the guy in white and the guy in green. But this is a third guy with his hand on his. I'll show you that one too. And so we'll talk about that. And what else? Economic New World Order, says Champagne. I'd say so. Yeah, because everybody's bankrupt now by design. And the $100 billion deficit. Oh my gosh, if only we knew how bad it really is. And Tom Mulcair is here to tell us how bad it actually really is. And so there's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. $100 billion deficit and the inflation trap that we're in. They have to lower rates, but they don't want to lower rates because lowering rates will increase inflation. But the inflation's kind of out of control anyway, or the numbers must be so bad that they have to lower rates in order to not tank the economy. So they're in a snookered position, which I called. I said, we're kind of screwed one way or the other. And now we've run the track to the end, and it's winding down, and they're trying to inject more fizz into it, right? It's flat ginger ale, but you're like, no, it's not flat. Put it under the thing that gives it fizzes again, and we'll just fizz it right up. And that's what they're trying to do to the economy. And they're hoping we won't notice the massive deficits and other spending they're doing to prop up this failing economy. But we're noticing. The other thing is, Mulcair here says, he talks about it in one way. But I think what's happening here is a little bit of art of the deal. Carney is giving us a big number. $100 billion deficit. That's a big number, up from $60 billion, right? And $60 billion, Chrystia Freeland walked out of that position. She was like, no way, I'm not telling the Canadian people that it's $62 billion. You can get on your bike there, Justin Trudeau. And so she left her position in order to avoid doing that. And then did we even get a budget that year? Not really. And then we've got now this $100 billion budget, excuse me. And I think that, as Mulcair says, it's going to settle somewhere in the 80s, and they'll say, oh, we did such a good job. We reduced the deficit. Oh my gosh, yay, pat ourselves on the back. The deficit is the spending over top of the GDP that we're doing. Like, this is a bad thing. And we don't have any fiscal anchors. We don't have anything to rein in this spending, this drunken spending parade. Nothing at all. And these people in government, they don't seem worried about it. They don't seem really worried about it at all. Everybody's smiling. We're bankrupt. Like, we're super bankrupt. And nobody cares. Here's Tom Mulcair, $100 billion deficit. Here we go.
Today, where he's very well plugged in with this government. And he was saying that he's been told it's going to be a $100 billion deficit. Now, of course, that can be a bit of a mug's game where you float $100 billion and it comes in at only $78 billion. Oh boy, we're doing a lot better now than we thought we were. I think that's the type of game that we're going to keep.
Art of the deal: offer way more than you think it's going to be, and then when you actually hear the real number, it sounds reasonable. It's not $100 billion; it's only $80 billion. Oh yay, we've done a lot of savings, right? It's BS, but it's art of the deal. Here we go.
Playing. It was interesting over the weekend. I heard Mr. McKinnon with Steve McKinnon with you, Vashi, pretty clearly indicating that there were going to be cuts to the civil service, and it didn't take 2 hours for Mark Carney to be out there talking about, no, it's going to be through attrition. The tail end of the baby boom is all heading for retirement. Everything's going to be fine. The last thing they needed was a nascent war with the civil service unions, and I guess they peeled back from that one at the last second. All that to say that there will be a massive deficit. None of what they've promised is going to change any of that magically. They can keep pointing to Trump and everything else. But I often find Andrew Scheer difficult to follow. Today, I found much of his presentation and his logic spot on, and I think that's the type of critique that the Liberals are going to be facing throughout the fall.
So, yeah, smart critique pointing out the holes in their ridiculous policies that are failing us. Here is Finance Minister Champagne, and he says we're in a new economic world order. And so he's trying to justify all of this. And one of the things he says is that Canadians know the difference. If you get a mortgage, that's an investment. If you go to the grocery store, that's spending. Sure, okay, there's a little bit of a difference there. You have to be able to afford your mortgage payment, and we're flat broke. So investing at the point where we've got a $100 billion deficit, we don't have any extra money. There's nothing in the couch cushions. We looked those up, Chrystia Freeland ago, right? Like, holy cow, here's Champagne.
You referenced in French the distinction that Mr. Carney wanted to make between operational spending and I can't remember the other word.
Capital investment.
Thank you very much. How are we going to see that reflected in the budget?
It's going to be very clear. We're going to be presenting to Canadian what we call the operational spend and the capital investment. And to make it simple, Canadians understand, when you buy a house, you invest. When you go to the grocery, you spend. And what I say is that this budget is going to be a generational investment in Canada. There's a lot of parallel that I can make between 1945 and 2025. At a time where our largest trading partner, neighbor, is turning its back on Canada, we had to make significant investments to protect our workers, protect our industry, and now it's going to be that collective effort we need to make sure that Canada is going to be resilient in this new world economic order. We're in the middle of global trade war. We need to make sure that we make smart investment, and the way to do that is that we say we're going to be rigorous in our expenses so we can be ambitious in our investments. So you want to spend less so you have more capital to invest. The type of thing that will give a return on our investment to make sure that we are resilient as a nation.
Maybe it's an odd set of coincidences, but the last time we had a fiscal update from this country was also the day that Chrystia Freeland quit. And then today, Chrystia Freeland quit, and you chose to announce the date today. I wonder if there's a reason you've announced the date today.
There's no connection between the two.
Yeah, I'm sure there's no connection between the two. One of the other things that he's talking about here, before he was talking about the economic world order, he was saying the United States were embroiled in this trade war, and we need to deal with the United States turning its back on us. This rhetoric isn't helping. Like, this is not the way. If you've got the United States that's so hot right now, and they've got lots of dance partners, and you're sulking in the corner like Canada is, even though we're kind of dancing with the United States, we've got the USMCA and we're okay. Do you think the renegotiation of the USMCA is going to be easier or more difficult with crap like this, all this rhetoric of, we've got to stand strong against the United States, diversify? We can't replace the volume that the United States purchases from Canada across the board with anything else. If we could, we'd have done it already, because that just doubles your throughput, right? Like, if you can decide, I'm not going to do any business with the United States, I'm just going to deal with Europe, and your business is viable for that, why wouldn't you deal with the United States? You're already exporting. Like, there's very little difference between exporting to one and the other. You can export to Europe now, mostly, for the most part, right? Not everything, but for the most part you can. Why don't people do it? Geography, that's why. Location, right, matters. And so it's not easy or cheap to do that, but it is easy and cheap to do it to places in the United States. And if you're doing it to some places in the United States, often you can get it to most places in the United States. And so that opens up a huge market for Canada. It's a huge opportunity. Pretending that we can just open up this market somewhere else is irresponsible. These people are insane lunatics. I've realized that that's the same word twice, but holy cow. My gosh, right? Like, they just don't care. Here is Mario. He says, lower the rates. We're in a snookered position. The rates are meant to control inflation. Inflation's already bad. Now, inflation's bad, and the food professor is going to talk about this in a minute. But the inflation's bad because the products were increased by the tariffs being put on the products by Canada to, quote, hurt the United States. Those tariffs have been taken off now. And so the food professor thinks we're through the worst of it. So maybe lowering the rates does make sense because the inflation was caused by something else, but lowering the rates may cause the inflation again. So like we're coming off of an inflationary round of due to tariffs, right? So things got more expensive because of bad Canadian policy. And now we may be going back into another round of inflationary stuff because of more bad Canadian policy. And I hate it, but it's like sometimes people don't see it. Mario says, lower the rates or prepare for real estate doomsday. Real estate doomsday was almost the title of this show today. Searches for help with mortgage are now higher than the 2008 market crash. And our economy is way, way worse than the 2008 situation. I want to show you before we get into the other charts that I've got here. Ted says, wonder how Canada's economy fell apart. 2014, Canada had first place middle class, gone now with lost money because businesses understood liberal policies. And Martin says, look what Trudeau did. The Trudeau government did to Canada. My goodness. And we re-elected the same government 4 times. Our elections are rigged. Here is the chart. And so you can see 2015, something happened. So the United States, Canada kind of decoupled somewhere around 2012, and we started going down, and we tried to catch up, but it didn't really work. If you look at the 2008 spike, and I can't show it, but like you can see you can't see the dates. Once this little thing is gone on the screen there, you'll be able to see the dates. You can see the dates across the bottom. And just after 2010, or just before 2010 is the spike. That's the 2008 crash, I think. And we're a long way away from that now. Like if the 2008 monetary economic activity happened tomorrow, it would be a huge injection in the arm to Canada's economy. We are probably the same distance as the spike below that spike on the chart now. The spike went from 160 roughly down to 110. So 50 points down, and 110 to 60. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Ha, nailed it. That was just that's my estimation skills, baby. So absolutely wild. We are 2008 crashes below the economic activity, and the United States is on its way up, on its upward march. This is drastic. Absolutely drastic. And they're not doing anything to fix it. Red Pill Rick says core inflation hasn't been this high in 30 years and they're going to cut rates. The rate's only job is to control inflation. So either they have given up on that mandate or they've seen numbers that we don't have access to and they're very, very bad. Maybe. It could be that the inflation was caused by a different mechanism than the rates. But I think that they're taking advantage of that space. So like, if that artificial space was created by the rising of the tariffs of those products, right, then presumably, if we drop rates, that'll save the real estate market. And who cares if we get inflation in the grocery store? Look at the inflation. They absorbed 25% inflation. They absorbed it. They kept buying coffee, right? That's the argument. So, hey, we can save our real estate and not worry about inflation all at the same time. Yay. So I don't know. I'm speculating and I'm not a money guy. So get a money guy and talk to them. Here is this guy, and this guy's a British dude. And this is fascinating. He says the cost of living crisis broken down. So these are modern numbers. I think this is UK numbers, but I think it maps well. So here we go.
That's the cost of living crisis. Suddenly we went up from prices being around there
in 21
to prices being there
in 24.
And you don't really see that in this data, okay? Because inflation is really just measuring the difference between that and that. And if you look at those two lines, you're talking about a 2.3% change.
That's just at the top of the graph between 2023 and 24.
That's the number we're talking about today. But for a lot of people, it's not about that. It's about the difference between this and that. And when you look at the difference between this and that, that's 20%. And I think that's the dichotomy here between these inflation numbers where it looks normal and this, which is really not normal at all. That's the cost of...
And I wonder what it is now in 25. I think that it's probably higher, right? Like this chart doesn't look like it's slowing down. It's on the upward trend, right? And so that chart is quite bullish. The food professor says it was interesting to watch the inflation data converge yesterday. Most media focused on beef prices up 12% due to climate factors and turned Sorry. Climate change is a hoax used to steal our money, food professor. You should get on board because they're lying to us. It's bad policy that's driving up the beef prices. Bad policy based on faulty science and lies about climate change. And we need to remove anybody who's pushing climate change nonsense from policy and office, period. All the bureaucrats, all the MPs, all the MPPs, MLAs, everybody, because it's a lie. Anyway, back to this. Beef prices up. And turned to liberal-leaning economists for commentary. What they avoided discussing was coffee, tea, nuts, seafood, frozen foods, confectionery, and sugar, all of which are way more expensive because of one reason: Ottawa's counter tariffs. Now, the counter tariffs are gone, so the worst is behind us, he says, maybe, but I'm not 100% sure. Food professor says Canadians deserve honesty about what is driving their grocery bills. Policy-induced inflation is a political choice, not an inevitability. The worst is likely behind us, fingers crossed, provided Ottawa resists the temptation to play with market conditions again. And food professor says we don't expect beef prices to stabilize until early 2027 at the earliest, so beef lovers buckle up. This is 2030 agenda, folks. They don't want us eating red meat, and they don't want us eating really any meat whatsoever. And if they can economically nudge the farmers to not make it anymore, grow it anymore, have beef herds, and nudge the people through economic force. Because if you go into a steakhouse and your usual steak that used to be $30, which was expensive, is now $90, and in the interim it was $60, went up from 30 to 60, now 90, right? Now maybe $120, right? At what level do you stop buying that steak? $160, right? $200 just for the one steak that you used to get for 30, right? Like, how much? And it's a lot less than you think, right? And then restaurants change their behavior because they can't get it for less than that, and they want to sell things that people can eat and want to eat, and so they change their things. 2027 is an eternity. Nobody wants to fix this problem. They're hoping that we allow it to continue. It's by 2027 they want digital IDs. Dan says, gosh, we're already 17 minutes in. I'm slow this morning. Dan says, breaking: the Liberals sold Canadians a false bill of goods through the Canadian Dental Plan. Newly obtained data reveals that 71% of pre-authorization claim requests, 651,000, are being denied. The Liberals pitched their dental care plan as being cost-free, and just like private insurance, they lied. This news comes as employers are contemplating canceling existing dental benefits for their workers. Rutrow. It's not so good. Holly Doan says management of the Canada Dental Care Plan has cost $472.9 million as of last March 31st. Finance Canada in 2023 had asked the Budget Office to withhold public release of administrative costs. Yeah, just don't tell anybody. Cool, thanks. Yeah, cool, thanks. And they all work hand in glove. They work so close, it's like a hand in a glove. Somebody sent me an email and says, what does hand in glove mean? Don't you mean hand in hand? And I said, no, hand in glove. They're the same thing. Okay? They work seamlessly together. You can't tell the difference between the hand and the glove. It becomes the hand, right? And so they're working very closely together, even though they're trying to maintain a separate appearance. Jasmine says, will you support the Liberals' budget if it has what you want in it? So they're using, speculative things. And Polyev says, what budget? It's a usual Polyev clip. Here we go.
Before his November budget comes forward. Thank you very much.
Ms. Kennedy said yesterday that you're going to support the Liberals when there's things to support, oppose them when necessary. When it comes to the budget, where are you going to land on that? Are you going to support it?
Which budget?
The one November 4th that was announced.
Do you have a copy you can give me?
I don't.
Okay,
But
when you get one, then I'll answer your question.
are there anything that's going to make it?
Nope, no budget. So pretty wild stuff. We've got some. I've got to tell the stream about Chrystia Freeland, and we've got some time, so we'll do a couple of grab bag of governance things, but we got to say goodbye to the stream soon. Kirk says Chrystia Freeland will serve as Canada's special representative for the reconstruction of Ukraine. What? Excuse me? Here's Mark Carney's letter. As she takes the decision to step down from the ministry, I would like to thank Chrystia Freeland, this is Mark Carney's letter, for her extraordinary service in the cabinet of Canada's federal government over the past decade. Christia's versatility, raw intelligence, and her red dress have served Canadians with distinction through extraordinary challenges and changes. Her leadership has helped, he doesn't say red dress, but he definitely meant to say it, helped to secure historic trade negotiations. No, Donald Trump hated her to guide the response to a global pandemic. Very suspect global pandemic where she laughed at truckers after she froze their bank account with no charge or conviction. All of this is just made up, blowing sunshine up her bum. And it has nothing to do at all whatsoever with the real Chrystia Freeland and what actually happened under her tenure in every single ministry she was a part of. Dean says Freeland quits the day after getting caught lying about the Chinese ferries contract in BC. Pure coincidence, am I right? Oh yeah, total coincidence. Lori says Prime Minister Mark Carney announces that while she's resigning from cabinet as Transport Minister, Chrystia Freeland will remain a Liberal MP while taking on additional role as Canada's new special representative for the reconstruction of Ukraine. She has also renounced she will not run in the next federal election. Bye-bye, Chrystia Freeland. But still, I don't want to be paying for her as an MP if she's not why would we have an MP as a minister in somebody else's government? This is insane. This is insulting. We should not pay for this. She should be removed from cabinet. If she's representing citizens in Ukraine, she's not representing her Rosedale riding. Like, come on. Mo says, my godchildren's mother deserves a plum patronage appointment. Probably Mark Carney, the most conflicted prime minister in history, handing out plum diplomatic positions and not removing as an MP his family member. So if you're the godparent to somebody, you're as close as a brother or a sister or something to that effect. You know what I'm saying? So very, very, very concerning if you ask me. CBC watcher, Mr. Polyev, what will Chrystia Freeland's legacy be? Here's what he says.
Mr. Polyev, what will Chrystia Freeland's legacy be in your view?
That's a good question. I think it was that she resigned rather than introduce a $62 billion deficit. I think she said the Liberals were trying to force her to introduce a deficit of $62 billion. And she said, this is irresponsible, it is out of control, and it will cause massive inflation. And of course, that deficit went ahead anyway, and now it's even bigger. She's probably trying to get out of town and as far away as possible before this disastrous November budget comes. And I don't blame her.
Mr. Polyev, what will Chrystia Freeland's legacy be?
Right. And again, he kind of papers over her terrible outcomes as well. Like every ministry she was ever had any kind of connection with. It's been terrible. Doug Ford is re-envisioning the past as well. He says, I want to thank my friend, Chrystia Freeland, for her many years of public service as an MP and minister and for her dedication to Canada. I wish her all the very best in her next chapter. Yeah, right? Man, it's crazy. Freedom Fighter says, for everyone glad to say good riddance to Chrystia Freeland, please note that she will still be on abused Canadian taxpayer payroll. This is just a made-up job by Mark Carney for a country that isn't Canada. There will be no mandate, no oversight, and a huge expense account. Shake my head. Yeah. Yep. I feel like there's not enough oversight at all. Here's more responses to this. Melissa says, Chrystia Freeland likely to become special envoy to Ukraine. This is a Soros directive. Freeland met Soros in 1991. They worked together. Chrystia Freeland's mother